Picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table on a Sunday morning, coffee getting cold, and you're scrolling through your banking app. Your savings account shows $60,000. Maybe it took you 5 years to get there. Maybe it took 10. You felt good about that number, like you'd finally done something right with your money. You had discipline. You said no to things. You sacrificed. But here's the thing that's been nagging at you, even if you can't quite put your finger on it. That $60,000 sitting in your savings account, untouched and earning almost nothing, actually makes you a bad customer. Not in a moral sense, obviously, but in a very real, very measurable economic sense. And by the end of this conversation, you're going to understand not just why that's true, but what it means for your actual financial future. This isn't about judgment. This is about perspective. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here's where I want to start, because this is the emotional core of why so many people do exactly what you're doing. Saving cash feels safe. When you have money in your savings account, you can see it, you can touch it. Well, metaphorically, you can open your app and feel this little rush of security, like you've built a fortress against uncertainty. And that feeling is real. It matters. It's not stupid. But here's what I think we need to talk about. That sense of safety is actually kind of an illusion, and the economy is literally betting on you feeling it. Banks love people like you. They genuinely do. Do you know why? Because you're giving them something incredibly valuable, your money, and in return, you're getting paid basically nothing for it. I mean, think about the actual math here. If you've got $60,000 in a high-yield savings account right now, you're probably earning somewhere between 4 and 5% annually, depending on which bank you use. That sounds okay, until you realize that inflation is eating away at your purchasing power at roughly the same rate, which means you're running on a treadmill, You're working, but you're not actually getting anywhere. But the bank takes your $60,000 and they lend it out at 7, 8, 10%. They're making money on your money. They're using your cash to generate wealth while you're sitting at home thinking you're being fiscally responsible. And here's the twist that really gets me. By keeping your money in cash, you're actually making yourself a worse customer to banks in a way that matters. You're not taking out loans, you're not buying investment products, you're not engaging with their entire ecosystem. You're just sitting there. You're the customer they want to keep out of trouble, but you're also the customer they're not making much money off of. So when I say you're a bad customer, what I mean is you're operating outside the system in a way that the financial world is explicitly designed to punish. And the punishment isn't dramatic or obvious. It's subtle. It's just time, compounding in the wrong direction. Let me tell you about my friend Derek, because his story really crystallizes something important here. Derek got his first job out of college in 2015. He was making decent money, nothing crazy, but decent. And he had this realization, right? He thought, I'm going to be different. I'm going to save money like crazy. So for the next 8 years, he put almost everything he could into a savings account. He was disciplined, he was focused. By 2023, he had saved up about $65,000. He felt incredible about this. He'd tell me about it at coffee, and you could see the pride in his face. He'd beaten the system, or so he thought. He had money when other people his age were drowning in debt.
But then we actually sat down and did the math, and it was depressing, honestly. If Derek had taken that same discipline, that same $400 or $500 a month he was saving, and invested it in a simple index fund starting in 2015, he would have had somewhere in the neighborhood of $85,000 to $90,000 by 2023. Not because he contributed more, just because the market, on average, returns about 10% per year. That's $20,000 to $25,000 in pure opportunity cost. That's a car. That's a down payment on a house. That's a year of not having to work. And Derek didn't make a single wrong move. He just made a choice that felt safe, and the market punished him for it, slowly and quietly. The thing about opportunity cost is that it's invisible. You don't see it in your bank account. You don't get a notification like, hey, you just lost $500 in potential gains today. So it's easy to ignore. But it's there, compounding away, day after day, year after year. This is where things get a little philosophical, and I promise I'm going somewhere with this. When you keep $60,000 in cash, you're making a bet. You're betting that the safety of not losing money is worth more than the potential of growing money. That's a legitimate bet, by the way. I'm not saying it's wrong. But here's what I think people don't fully grasp. That bet is still a bet. There's still risk. It's just a different kind of risk. See, there's this bias in how we think about risk. We think risk is about losing money, but risk is actually about uncertainty. And what's more uncertain? A broad market index that has basically gone up in value over every 20-year period in modern history? Or your cash sitting in an account while inflation erodes its purchasing power? I'll give you a concrete example. Let's say it's 2005 and you have $60,000 in cash. You think you're being safe, but over the next 20 years, inflation averages about 2.5% per year. By 2025, that $60,000 only has the buying power of about $35,000. You haven't lost a dime in your account, but you've lost $25,000 in real value. That's genuine risk. That's genuine loss. And here's the thing that really bothers me about this dynamic. We've been conditioned to fear stock market risk because we can see it. We get statements, we watch the news about market crashes. It feels scary and real. But inflation risk, opportunity cost risk, the risk of your money losing value in real terms, that's invisible, so we ignore it. The financial industry is counting on that. They want you to fear the visible risk and ignore the invisible risk, because the invisible risk is what keeps your money in their banks, available for them to lend out and profit from. Let me paint a different scenario for you, because I think this is where things get really interesting, and maybe a little uncomfortable. Imagine you and your friend Aaron both make the same salary. You both start with $0. You save aggressively, and over 10 years, you accumulate $60,000. Aaron does something different. He saves $30,000, but he invests the rest, getting a modest 7% return annually. By the end of year 10, you've got your $60,000. Aaron has about $48,000 from his savings, plus his investments have grown to roughly $65,000. His total? About $113,000. You're looking at him wondering how he ended up with almost double what you have when you were the one who was more disciplined, more frugal, more careful. But here's the kicker. Aaron didn't make more money than you. He didn't work harder. He just understood the game differently. He understood that savings and investment are not the same thing, and that one of them is actually playing the game, while the other one is just sitting on the sidelines. And this is playing out right now in the real economy. The people who understand this are slowly, methodically building wealth, while people with your mentality, with my old mentality, I should say, are wondering why they feel financially stuck despite having built up a decent amount of cash. It's not fair, exactly, but it's how the system works. The game is rigged toward people who understand that money is a tool that should be working, not resting. I want to talk about inflation for a second, because I think this is where the rubber meets the road, and it's where a lot of people get defensive. When I say inflation erodes cash value, people sometimes push back. They'll say, well, inflation has been low lately, or my savings account is at 4.5%, so I'm keeping up. And technically, yes, maybe in some years that's true, but I think we're looking at this wrong.
Here's what actually happened over the past century. Inflation has averaged about 3% per year. Some years it's higher, some years it's lower. But over the long term, that's the trend. And if you're earning 4% in a savings account while inflation is running at 3%, you're making 1% in real returns. 1%. Do you know what the average stock market return is? About 10% annually. Even after subtracting for inflation, that's roughly 7% in real returns. That's 7 times better. But here's the thing that really gets under my skin about this. The 4.5% rate you're getting in a high-yield savings account right now, that's only available because interest rates got hiked way up to fight inflation. In a normal economic environment, you'd be getting 0.1%, 0.1. You'd be making nothing. And the banking industry would be laughing all the way to the bank, literally, with your $60,000 generating massive returns for them while you get essentially nothing. The fact that we're having this conversation in 2025, when rates are still relatively high, is actually a window of opportunity that won't last forever. Rates always come down eventually, and when they do, that $60,000 is going to be earning $30 a month instead of $225. At that point, you're not going to feel like you're being safe anymore, you're just going to feel like you're losing. Here's something darker that I think about, and I want to be honest with you about it. There's a part of you that likes having $60,000 in cash, not for rational reasons, for psychological reasons, because it gives you a sense of control, it gives you a checkpoint. You can point to it and say, I've done something, I've achieved something. It's concrete in a way that abstract investment returns aren't. And I get it, I really do. But I think we need to call what this is. It's a form of self-sabotage dressed up as prudence. See, if you actually invested that money, you'd have to think about it differently. You'd have to accept volatility. You'd have to sit with the discomfort of watching your account go down 20% in a market crash, even though you logically know it's going to come back. You'd have to have faith in a system that often feels rigged against you, and that's hard. That's uncomfortable. But the comfort you're getting from that savings account is costing you thousands of dollars per year, maybe tens of thousands over a decade. And at what point does the psychological comfort stop being worth the actual financial cost? I think about this a lot because I see it in people I know and care about. They're not stupid, they're not lazy, they're just stuck in a story about what safety means, and that story is costing them. I want to fast forward for a second and talk about the person you're going to be in 20 years. If you keep doing what you're doing, saving aggressively, keeping everything in cash, here's what your situation will probably look like. You'll have accumulated maybe $300,000 to $400,000, depending on your income. You'll feel proud of it. You'll tell people about it at dinner parties. And then you'll realize that inflation has cut the real value of all that money in half. You'll be 45 or 50 years old, and you'll have the equivalent purchasing power of someone with $150,000 to $200,000 in today's dollars. Meanwhile, your friend Aaron, the one who invested, will have something like $800,000 to $1.2 million, depending on market conditions. He won't feel like he worked harder. He won't feel like he sacrificed more. He'll just have benefited from compound growth, and he'll be in a completely different financial reality. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night about this. That gap isn't inevitable. It's not because Aaron is smarter or better. It's because he understood something that you didn't, and that something cost him nothing but a willingness to be uncomfortable. Your future self is sitting there right now, looking back at this moment, wondering why you didn't make a different choice when you had the chance. Your future self is asking, why did I let perfect be the enemy of good? Why did I let the fear of a 10% market downturn cost me $500,000 in wealth? That's a conversation worth having with yourself, I think.
So let's talk about what to do with this information, because I never want to just leave people feeling bad about their choices without giving them a real path forward. First, understand that moving from a cash-only strategy to an investment strategy doesn't mean you need to do anything radical. You don't need to dump all $60,000 into the market on day one. Actually, don't do that. That would be another form of extremism, just in the opposite direction. What you do is this. You keep maybe $10,000 to $15,000 in a high-yield savings account as your emergency fund. That's your peace of mind. That's your fortress against truly unexpected events. Then you take the remaining $45,000 to $50,000 and you start investing it. I'd recommend starting with something simple, a low-cost index fund that tracks the broad market, something like a total stock market index fund or an S&P 500 fund. The beauty of this approach is that you're not trying to pick winners. You're not trying to beat the market. You're just buying a small piece of the entire market and letting it grow. And here's the thing that matters. You probably won't notice the difference in your life. Your cash flow won't change. Your daily expenses won't change. The only thing that will change is that your money will be working for you instead of working for the bank. Is it going to be volatile? Yes. There will be months where you look at your account and it's down 5%. There will be years where it's down 15 or 20%, and that will feel scary. But if you can just sit with that discomfort, if you can just not touch it for 20 years, the math will do the work for you. I want to loop back to where we started because I think there's something important to say about this idea of being a bad customer. When I called you a bad customer for keeping $60,000 in cash, I wasn't being literal. You're not a bad person. You're not doing anything immoral. But you are, in a sense, falling outside the economic game in a way that's disadvantageous to you. The banking system, the investment industry, the broader financial ecosystem, it's all built on the assumption that you're going to take risk in exchange for potential reward. It's built on you putting your money to work. When you don't do that, when you opt out, the system still wins. The bank still makes money off your deposits. Inflation still erodes your value. And you're just not participating in the wealth-building game. So here's what I actually mean. Being a bad customer means being a customer that the system doesn't have to work hard for. You're easy, you're safe, you're not demanding anything from your money, and the system loves that. But you shouldn't love that. You should be demanding. You should be insisting that your money earn its keep. You should be refusing to be the easy customer that the banking system can coast on. So here's what I want you to walk away from this conversation with. That $60,000 is real. Your discipline is real. Your sacrifice is real. None of that changes. But the way you're stewarding that money, the way you're storing it and protecting it, is costing you more than you realize. It's costing you compounding growth. It's costing you wealth. It's costing you options. The good news, and I genuinely mean this, is that this is fixable. Right now, today. You can take a different approach. You can start investing. You can become a good customer in the sense of actually participating in wealth building rather than just hoarding cash. And I know it feels risky. I know it feels scary. But you know what's actually risky? Watching your purchasing power erode year after year while the people around you who understand investing build wealth that you could have built alongside them. You don't need to be a financial genius. You don't need to pick stocks or chase trends. You just need to be willing to let your money do what money is supposed to do. Grow, over time, consistently, compounding. The person you're going to be in 20 years is going to thank you for making that choice, not because it's going to be easy or comfortable, but because it's going to be worth it. And honestly, that's what it's all about.